Okay. So we are live. Let's just take a quick peek in the audience to see who we've got, and it always takes a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds for folks to show up. We've got Vanita, fantastic, from the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development Office, who will be our first agenda item. Vanita, I'm going to promote you in just a moment, and then I know you had a colleague who is potentially going to join you. So if you don't mind, if you are Vanita's colleague, I can see her. But if you don't mind just raising your hand, I'll promote both of you um,
I think it was
to be able to.
Ketan Gata.
Great. Yep. Perfect. Great. Thank you, Krishna. This is one of the many reasons why you get copied on every single email I send regarding economic development. We will call our meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. It is Thursday, November 20th. This is a meeting of the ANC 1B Committee on Economic Development. We'll start with our roll call and then we'll review our agenda for tonight. Krishna Kumar,
Present.
David Martin,
Present.
Howard Kurtzman,
Present.
Frank Chauvin,
Present.
Matt Fay is here. Karen Gall is currently hosting the 3D meeting that she chairs. This is one of the few nights that we overlap. Ian Hawksworth, not here. I knew he was traveling. Tanya Shand, not here. With five of eight, we have quorum. So we can begin our agenda for this evening, emailed out to the committee members earlier this week. We're going to start with an update from the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. This is in the Reeves Center. They were good enough, kind enough to come out and present to us in May. And so they are back giving an update on where things are. Promote to panelist Vanita and promote to panelist Ketten. Great. So we're going to get an update there. The second is going to be a brief update on the Office of Planning open house this weekend that launched phase two of the comp plan, something that this group has been spending a fair amount of time talking about. We're going to share a little bit about the kind of early findings, some of the frameworks that they're putting out there, and talk a little bit more about kind of how this committee kind of responds to those early frameworks and priorities. Is that something that we, endorse, embrace? Is it something that we would want to, suggest a different set of priorities? And this is the time to start talking about it. We don't have to formalize anything, but I think it's important to understand what the Office of Planning is starting to think about and how that resonates or doesn't with us. And then third, there is a resolution that we actually did not have a chance as a committee to read the text of the resolution. At our last meeting, Commissioner Barrio came. He spoke kind of at a broader level about the goals he was hoping to achieve through the resolution. It was presented at the November ANC Commission meeting. It was moved by the Commission to table it and to send it to back, frankly, to Commissioner Barrio for additional work. He has done some additional work. We will be reviewing the draft four that he has shared and that I shared with the committee members earlier in the week. And we will talk a little bit more about guidance, input, what kind of suggestions we would want to make. I will leave it open as to whether we decide that we want to vote on it or not. At this point, what I'm hoping to do at the very least is to make sure that we are getting some very clear recommendations back to both Commissioner Barrio and then also some very clear recommendations to the Commission. And so I'm going to kind of focus on more of an open dialogue on that particular topic without presuming that we'd be moving to a vote. So those are the items. Krishna, I see your hand is up. Anything else that you would like to add or questions on the agenda itself?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I know you emailed us the latest version of the agenda on Wednesday. I also know it's gone through a number of revisions. So the one I have is labeled V4. I just want to make sure that that's correct. And is there any way to share that version with our audience?
We will be.
Okay. I mean,
Yep.
maybe we could, if we could maybe just do that now so they have a chance to look at it, before it happens. That's the only thing I was going to raise because what I'm saying is it's gone through so many itinerations, it's hard to keep track of the text.
Yeah, I think there are a number of folks who are on the call. Ms. Feskinich, Ms. Hanrahan, Ms. McMahon, I believe all do have a copy already,
Okay.
provided to them by Mr. Otten, who I don't see on the line yet. Um, and I think it's actually really hard to send documents out to the
Okay, that's
audience.
fine. That was
Yeah.
my question. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. I'm sorry.
Not easily possible. How's that? But if we figure out how to do it over the course of, for example, why don't we do this, Krishna, if you don't mind? If you are a member of the audience, here's how we'll solve it. If you are currently a member of the audience and you would like to receive a copy of the draft resolution that we'll be reviewing as our third item, please add it to the chat. And Krishna will copy all of those and send you a copy. It is V4 underscore clean, I think. Krishna is the one that I'm tracking as the most recent.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. One minor update before we dig into our DemPed presentation. Joining us, but after roll call, Mr. Ian Hawksworth, welcome.
Sorry, I'm in the
And no,
Apologies.
you're good. You're dressed like you had a long day, so you know.
Yes.
We all have other things to do than economic development committee meetings. And then Ms. Tanya Shand is on as well. And to both Ian and Tanya, just to let you know, Ms. Gall is not here tonight. She is chairing the 3D CAC meeting. This is one of the Thursdays that we overlap, just kind of in the count of Thursdays in a given month. What I would like to do is to turn the floor over to both Vanita and Ketan from DemPed to give us an update on the Reeves Center. We appreciate your being here. This is a big project that people have been paying very close attention to. I maybe want to set or manage both committee and community member expectations by saying, and then Vanita, you can say that Matt Fay is dead wrong, which is fine. But managing expectations by saying that the current economic climate in Washington, D.C. Does not lend itself right now to a lot of significant investment in development and housing growth. We're not seeing a whole lot of cranes up across the city right now. And so as DemPed shares their updates, which we're grateful for, if they are not showing progress at breakneck speed, there are probably a lot of reasons for that. And we should, talk about where we are, timelines, challenges, et cetera. But from my perspective, it's always better to have an update and some Q&A than to say, hey, we're still working on it, because people are interested and we appreciate the partnership we get to build with you all. So with that said, I'll turn it over, Vanita, to you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner and members of the committee. I'm happy that you guys are welcomed us back. I'm here joined with my colleague, Ketan Gata, tonight, and providing an update on the Reeves Center. Right now, the prior tenants have all relocated to their new locations. Majority of the tenants are now located at 899 North Capitol Street. And although the tenants have left, the parking garage does remain open and operational, available to the public. We know that that is a key item for the community, given the activity within the area, and that'll remain, open as long as possible. We are, in terms of the redevelopment, we are still reviewing and assessing the development plan with our development partner. As you had referenced earlier, Commissioner Fay, it is a challenging lending and economic environment as we start to look at, financial feasibility and what that looks like. We are assessing various schedules in terms of phased approaches in order to get the NAACP into their space. So we are, looking at all the options and stay in close contact with our development partners. Not too much substantial updates of substance, but, wanted to provide what we can in terms of current occupancy and operations at the Reeves, and then also what we're doing in the back end as it relates to the redevelopment.
Great. There was a hand in the audience. I think one quick question, and then we'll go to Mr. Kurtzman. Are all of the tenants out at this point? So it's a vacant building right now, or is there
Yes.
any? Okay.
Yes, it's currently a vacant building. Because we are still working through the development plan, we have notified DGS that if there are interested tenants for either short-term lease or they need things like swing space, storage. For example, we had the city administrator's office utilize the first and second floor as storage for World Pride. So we are looking at interim uses with DGS.
Great. Howard.
Thanks for your update. I'm glad to hear that you're working to facilitate the NAACP coming in there. As I recall, the selected plan also included a hotel, and I was wondering if there's been any movement on finding a hotel company that would take that space.
So at this moment, we do still have programmatically, we do have the hotel component. That has not changed. But in terms of where we are in the process, we have not identified a brand or an operator yet. That will come a little further along the process.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of quick questions. And I appreciate that I can't really pin you down much on timeline. So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about process. Once you would finalize the details with the developer, I think what I heard you say when you were visiting with us in May is that those details would then be made public, be sent to council, and council would be reviewing those. So there would be an opportunity for the ANC to be able to review those, weigh in, share with the council our thoughts. But there is kind of this brief moment where the deal is essentially done and it goes to council for approval, where there is some public feedback period.
Correct.
Okay.
We would engage the community and provide an update before we send it to council. Any packages that do go to council is open and published to the public, but we do want to have those intermediary meetings so we're able to provide updates, and that, a published package on the record is not the first time you see it.
Yep. Great. Second question before we go to Krishna is, and again, say what you can, and then maybe speak to process a little bit. Are there any requests, considerations for a change in zoning at this point to accommodate the future development, or are the discussions really centered around the current zoning standards, the current zoning of the property as it is?
I think the development partner, we're looking at all the options,
Okay.
given the climate that we're in, what they had proposed. It's been probably about 2 years, so I think we're exploring all options.
Okay. Krishna, go ahead.
Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Okay. Vanita, thanks for coming in again. Couple questions. And my first, it's really three things. The first one, trying to understand who really owns the site right now. Is it DEMPED? Is it DGS? How does that work? Because I know there's some internal transfers that sometimes occur with these DEMPED sites and other things, and I'm just trying to get a little bit more color on that process and how you're thinking about it.
So right now it is still within the operations of DGS. We're working closely with them. And so if there are any concerns, they are still working closely with the parking operator. They also are working with security. We still have on-site security presence. And so if there are anything that comes up as it terms to in regards to the operations or something on site, that goes to DGS. And then we've also notified them that they can contact us directly. So we have been in close communication. But in terms of the day-to-day, it is under DGS.
And so when you mentioned the possibility of like short-term uses,
can you hear me? This is Keaton Gada. Sorry, Commissioner, to interrupt you. So to answer that question slightly different, so that you have a clearer picture on that. So the Reeves building is in the DGS portfolio, but DEMPET has a disposition and disposition development authority on that. That's why we work with them. But so that's the relationship that we have.
So the reason I was asking that, I mean, is one, I just wanted to bring up that this is an unfortunate situation, but there's a number of unhoused people who have taken up residence in the former entrances by the post office on 14th Street. So I'm not sure who's responsible for that is the first question. And then to sort of broaden out to Caton's larger point, if someone wanted to lease or use a short-term space, would that be a DGS issue or a DEMPET issue? I mean, who would be making those decisions?
I can answer that as well, both those things. So we are working with DGS to so because the building is empty, there's not a whole lot of security left on the campus now, but they do have bare minimum security to make sure that the building is secure and something doesn't happen that kind of disturbs the neighborhood. With that said, I live in the neighborhood as well, just commissioners, just so you guys know. I live literally 2.5 blocks from there. So during summer, the homeless activities are pretty high. I see that as well. But during winters, as you guys know now, it's kind of somewhat quiet. And last week, I believe the DGS team, along with the security, kind of did a little inspection of the garages and stuff as well. So I wanted to make sure that there was nothing happening there. So we haven't had any untoward report or higher incidences of report of homeless people hanging out than what we have seen before since the building has been vacant. And then to answer the second question, who does that get if somebody wants to lease it? So at the end of the day, both DGS and DEMPET are in lockstep, and we coordinate a lot. But if the lease has to go through, DGS will be since the building is in their portfolio, they would be the ones kind of working with the tenant to make that happen. But they coordinate with us, and we kind of work with them to make sure that it's a short-term lease and stuff like that doesn't hinder the future development in any way. So.
Okay. And actually, I think we sort of went through my second question, so I'm just going to skip that. And then the third thing, and I hate to embarrass you guys on this, where there was, a news report on the raise permit, and you did guys address it, and we understand. If you guys want to give a little bit more color just to everyone else on the call, I think that might be appreciated. Yeah. And I guess the other thing is just tangential to that is one of the things Anita said, which I thought was very interesting, was thinking about phased approaches. And maybe if you could talk a little bit more color on the phased approaches. And the reason I'm asking that is I'm just trying to understand how long that parking garage is going to be around. That's really my concern, because I could see some phased approaches that involve construction starting in some areas and not other areas, but my basic looking at the site is I think you would still have to take out the parking garage to basically start anything there. And I know you really probably are not at that point yet, and that's fine, but I'm just curious if you have any color that you can share about that phased approach.
So we can speak to both. So we can definitely speak to both the questions there. The first one being so it was definitely caught us by surprise as well that there was a raise application out there. When we dug into it, and a lot of research was done by Vanita, so I want to give her credit for that. Basically, what had happened is there was another district agency who has property in different in Maryland, but the way it works, the district has ownership of that. It was a land swap, so the district owns that property. So they were trying to they were trying to raise a building on that property in Maryland. But because the agency was housed in Reef Center prior to them vacating the premises, the contractor basically used that Reef Center. So that's why it got into it through. Yeah. So it wasn't an error on our part or anybody else's part. It's not being raised. So just to kind of clear the air on that, the raise is not happening anytime soon. And if the raise happens, you guys will be notified. You guys will let you guys know. The developer will be out there working with you and letting you know as well, like on the schedule and stuff like that. So I want the community and the commissioners to be assured that nothing's going to be done without you guys being in the loop. So
yes, and Urban Turf did retract their statement. They replaced the article with the clarification. So if people do reference that prior article, that would be the message that they receive.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And that was definitely an amusing error on the part of the journalist to jump to conclusions. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the second question that you had about the phase development. So I think what we can say right now is the developer is evaluating all their options right now, and we are working with them. So I think at the end of the day, the way DEMPED works is the project has to be feasible for the developer first. They need to be able to build it. So we let them explore that, and that's where it stands. So once that is finalized, we will basically work with them to make sure that they come out and do a public presentation. So you guys are brought up to speed as to what they plan on it, whether it's phased or not phased. I think we'll kind of they're just evaluating all those options right now. And I do want to kind of take a second to say that I will go on record to say Commissioner Fay was right about the economic challenges in the city and how most of the projects are somewhat stalled, not of the making of the district, because the private sector lending climate and the debt financing is very hard to come by these days. So.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle, I think, for development for the next few years. Well, we thank you, both of you, for coming, joining, sharing your thoughts as we kind of transition. Let me just ask if the audience has any questions. I didn't see any hands during this, but want to thank you. We really appreciate. Hey, Arlene, we'll give you a chance to speak here. But we definitely appreciate your coming and sharing, and we'll just continue to stay in touch. So Vanita and Kate and I will continue to email you if you can do the same, and we'll bring you back at some point when we've got a good update to share. And if there's anything that we can be doing, please let us know. One question from Arlene, and then we'll transition to our next topic.
Yes.
Go ahead, Arlene.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Has there been any joint planning between the Reef Center and 1617 U Street as far as development plans go? Is there any kind of coordination in how those two district-owned properties will be developed?
Right now, they are on different phases of the project. I believe 1617U was going through, I may not have the most up-to-date information on some zoning on proceedings, so I can't speak to that directly, but we do work closely with the development manager. He's one of our colleagues on that project.
Thank you.
And then for folks who are listening, we heard from Daniel Lyons, who's also from DEMPED, that they are expecting the zoning decision sometime in January or February. It's taken much longer than I think they were expecting, much longer than we were expecting. And so we're still waiting on the final zoning determination on 1617 before that moves forward. The other thing that happened this week, and I appreciate that Chris and Arlene and Debbie all reached out to Mr. Lyons to inquire about community engagement. I've told them this in an email. We had a hiccup. I will take full blame for it. We had a hiccup in transmitting the resolution to Mr. Lyons. And so he only received that resolution this week. We are working to fast track a call, hopefully with Krishna, myself, and Mr. Lyons, to talk about kind of the framework for getting engagement. And then this committee will be working directly with DEMPED on a community engagement effort on 1617. And so I know things are moving more slowly, but that's not a reason for us to not continue to engage and make sure we're doing the hard work of bringing the community voice first. Arlene, I'm just confirming you weren't thinking about connecting the two via like a glass bridge down U Street, were you? Because we could always be advocating for that, like fancy bridge between 14th and U and 16th and U.
Oh, underground tunnel.
Underground tunnel, even better. I like this. We'll just extend the metro. That's actually a great idea. Now we can get Adams Morgan on the metro too. Chris Otten, I see your hand up. Let me allow you to talk. Chris, you are muted still.
Okay, is that better?
There we go. We can hear you.
Sorry about that. Reeves Center, public building, large, empty. It used to be a homeless services emergency winter shelter for as long as I can remember. And so, to Krishna's point earlier, if there's folks sleeping outside of it, it's probably because they don't have a home. And so, I'm wondering if that's going to be opened up this winter for shelter, seeing that it's just empty and sitting there.
So I can answer that. So there are no plans for that because the mayor does have different locations throughout the city for winter shelters, if you will. And I think she had basically there's a hotline that is also available, and they basically take you to different locations within the city to kind of do that. And that's not just Reeves; it's anywhere else as well. So.
Okay, so that's a no. And the question, the Q&A, I saw something in the Q&A that made sense to me. The district agencies that were in the building, they've been moved out. Do you know that they've been moved to private buildings and how much that's costing taxpayer dollars now?
Don't know that. So it's basically most of the have gone back to the district agencies where like locations, but that would be a question for DTS. So.
That's a good. You don't know where they went to?
I work for DEMPED, yes, Chris. So I work for DEMPED.
Okay.
DTS, as I said, DTS has this building is within DTS's portfolio.
Okay.
And, they basically relocated those different agencies to different places. So we rely on them to do what's best for them in terms of leasing.
But so you don't know where they went?
No, I think he said most of them went to 899
I missed that.
North Cap. I was actually just there on Saturday. I'm going to give my update in a moment. What I don't know, ABCA is actually also there at 899 North Cap. I don't know if that is a district-owned building or whether that is a privately owned building.
Okay.
So we'll reach out and find out and then send a note around.
Thank you. Cool.
All right. Vanita, Keaton, thank you very much for both being here. We appreciate it. And Keaton, good to know you're in the neighborhood. We'll have to find out who your commissioner is, or you can and just give them a hard time.
No, there's no reason to, but thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys having us. So.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both.
Bye.
All right. Let's do this really quickly. I just need to change two statuses here, although they're both going to be back on. Everybody's moving around here. Okay. So let's transition into the Office of Planning. This is kind of our broader discussion tonight is just kind of like planning and housing along or in the ANC. U Street obviously is one of our major focus areas. We have now entered phase two. Phase two is kind of envisioning these different futures. I actually am sorry to say that I did not create a slide on this. So if one of the committee members has their email up, you can maybe take us through the phases and the timelines because I cannot have my email open at the same time that I host these because of the way Zoom works. But phase one of the 2050 comp plan ended in August of this year. That was kind of the first survey introducing what the comp plan was, surveying the community to understand what their priorities were, et cetera. And then we began phase two in September of this year. September began the phase of kind of envisioning different futures for the district. And when you really think about the comp plan and boil it down to its most basic pieces, the comp plan is really about planning for future population growth in the district. There's a lot of other elements that come into it, but at its heart, Krishna, if you do have that email with all the phases and the dates, if you can pull it up, that would be great. But it really is at its core about looking at the demographic data, projecting forward over the next 25 years, how many new jobs, how many new people are going to be moving into the district, and then beginning to grapple with big questions like housing and transportation and education facilities, and all of the other things that infrastructure, all the things that come with more people working in the city and more people living in the city. this phase, which began in September, is going to run through. Um, I'm looking for any one of my committee members to help me on this because
I
I
think
don't remember.
I can help you out here. So we've got phase two running through March of 2026.
Yep,
And phase three, create our plan, April of 2026 through June of 2027. And the following phase four, legislative approval, July 2027 through February 2028. And phase five, making our plan a reality, March 2028 and beyond.
perfect. Thank you so much, David, for saving me on that. So yeah, we've got this next feedback period that's going to run. Sorry, David, when's it running through? Phase two?
Phase two running through March 2026.
Yeah, great. So this is going to be a pretty intensive period. So from roughly now until March. So this is our time for the commission to be really reviewing what we think our development priorities are or planning priorities are, to be kind of reviewing them not just with this committee, but also with zoning and planning, also with transportation, parks, and public spaces, for the commission to be voting and then transmitting our priorities over to the Office of Planning. And so there's still quite a bit of time that they're going to be taking to actually develop the plan. So the plan itself is going to be developed starting after March of 2026. It'll be finalized in June of 2027. And then, as they have described it to us, they will then begin a roadshow where kind of July, August, September of 2027, they will be presenting this plan to a number of different constituents, refining it, fine tuning it. And then the expectation is that it would go to council for their approval October, November of 27, with the expectation that it would be finally approved by February of 2028. And of course, January of 2028 begins a new commission term. And so you'll have some transition between the commission that gets elected in this coming, spring and fall of 2026 and the group that gets elected in 2028. So we've got a road ahead of us. This is a good time, and one of the things we'll talk more about, in the next couple of meetings is, um, you know, refining and honing our position on a number of different development priorities and topics, because we'll want to start transmitting those to the Office of Planning, January, February, March of this year, so that information's on the record and available to the Office of Planning. Here's what, let me pause and just see if there's any questions or comments on that. And then I'm just going to share with you kind of the top line feedback that they shared at this event in terms of what the community had said. Okay. Let me just scroll here really quickly. Okay. So essentially what they said, let me know if you can see this. I tried to put it into full view. All right, can you guys see this okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this was really, I mean, they did a huge amount of work, and they brought a lot of people together. And so really what the Office of Planning did is they boiled this down into, I would say, the most simplest form that they could, kind of to keep everybody focused. And also, I think they're trying to keep us focused at a higher level still. We haven't yet drilled down, which is now what phase two is. What they shared, that the key findings from the stakeholders, all these folks that they engaged in phase one, was that housing ranked as the top priority for DC 2050. And that the emphasis was really on the creation of new housing that should accommodate different levels of affordability and household sizes. I think that's, I'm not going to editorialize too much. I think that's good, right? We're saying we know we need to add more housing. There's a strong kind of feedback on that. We've got to have attention to affordability. And then I was appreciative that there was a consideration of household sizes, because there has been an ongoing, chant in the background about let's not just build one bedroom apartments as we think about new development. Let's also talk about family-sized units. Let's talk about different purposes and different audiences. And so I appreciated that was called out. Secondarily, what they raised is that residents want one, more grocery stores, two, parks and recreation, And three, access to metro stations and transit hubs within walking distance of their homes. It's not really called out here. Maybe it is. Actually, if you think about within walking distances of their home, I was originally thinking that was referring specifically and only to metro stations and transit hubs. And I was going to say what I heard is that people wanted improved walkability. So I would interpret this as people are looking for these three things, their top priorities, being within walking distance of their homes. And so when people were saying, here's the types of development that I would like, and this came through at some of the events that I went to for phase one, people really were kind of thinking about being in an urban environment that had the things that they wanted and a way to get to them within, walking distance to their house. Again, I think we're particularly well positioned in the mid-city in ANC 1B for those types of things. But it's also good to hear what's been raised as priorities, across the board. As I shift pages, and if somebody can just give me a thumbs up that the page actually shifted on your screen as well. Yeah,
Yep.
great. They delved a little bit deeper into housing, with that being the number one priority. And what they conveyed was that the stakeholder preference for how new housing would be added should be, and this is actually in rank order. Number one, add housing near transit hubs. In our current area, ANC 1B, I would consider transit hubs not just the subway stations, but also the high volume bus routes that run through the neighborhood, U Street, Florida, Georgia, and 14th Street. The second was around prioritizing new housing downtown by converting old office buildings into housing. Again, we've actually got a couple of examples in our commission. So the idea of the Reeve Center is actually a office building conversion to housing proposal. The work that's going on at the Howard University Hospital is similar, where that will create new housing after a new hospital is built. And so I think we actually have some of these examples of office building conversion to create new housing, even within our commission area. The third is focus on creating more family-sized homes. The fourth is adding small apartment buildings near commercial corridors. This, as they went into it, is really the 3, 4, and 5-story apartment buildings, not the 10-story buildings where you've got hundreds of units, but the 3, 4, and 5-story buildings where you've got maybe a dozen or dozens of units. And as they talk about commercial corridors, this is where they're talking about things like 14th Street, like U Street, like Florida Avenue at 14th Street. So putting in some more density in these areas that are already commercially oriented. And then number 5 is increasing housing in areas with fewer residents. And this is going to get a little bit to the resolution, draft resolution that we'll talk about here in just a moment. But this is really kind of thinking about, for areas that have current, low density of population, how would you add additional density into those areas so that you're increasing density, more broadly across the area. Right now in ANC 1B, we don't really have a lot of spaces that are not densely populated. I think we're probably on a scale of slightly less dense and much more dense, as opposed to saying not dense. And that's probably one of the things that we've all chosen as we've moved here is having more of that walkability and density. But those were the five priorities that they highlighted from the stakeholders. Krishna's got a question, and I want to turn to him. One of the questions that I want to put back to the group is, and I'm happy to put it back up on the screen, is how do those priorities resonate with our current thinking about density? Is that really, sorry, not density, about housing prioritization? So I'd love to get your thoughts on that, but Krishna, I'll go to you first.
Yeah. So Matt, first, thanks for putting this all together and giving that further context. That's very helpful. What I just wanted to pick on for 1 second and get some ideas from you is the transit hub idea, because in my mind, when somebody says transit hub, that's very different than saying a transit corridor like what we have on U Street. And those are two just think things, I think. And I'm just curious if you had any further conversations or any talks about that, if there's anything you can share about how people were thinking about that. I mean, I'm not trying to pin you down here. It's just that word kind of triggered me because it could mean slightly different things to different people.
Yeah, I mean, my first response is I think you're on point. That the hubs probably do represent things like the intersection of U and 14th Street or the intersection of Florida and Georgia, and that the commercial corridor is probably the length of U Street. We didn't talk specifically about that, but that's definitely something I will go back and ask for some clarification on. Members of the OP planning team will be joining our committee meeting in either January or February. So we invited them to come before the end of the year. And they said their schedules were such that they just couldn't, but they really are looking forward to coming out and uh, giving a presentation, answering a lot of questions. But I will ask them that question in advance. But I think that's a good distinction
And
and a
just
point that we should clarify.
just a little point of clarification too. I mean, so what we are really talking about here is housing and affordability. And I know there's a lot of other stuff that's in the comp plan. Is that something you really wanted to have a conversation about tonight, or do you want to sort of save that for when we have the comp plan people come in January?
I want us to start thinking about it, right? So one of the reasons that I want us to start thinking about it, and one of the reasons why I think this is timely is that we have a resolution that we're going to review here probably in the next 5 to 10 minutes. And it does have to do with housing creation. And so I want people to be thinking about the relative priorities that were communicated. I want us to think about what our priorities are because they could be exactly the same. They could be different. So I just want us to be thinking about it. We don't need to reach any kind of conclusion about it tonight, but it is something that we will need to ultimately make a recommendation to the commission on, so that that can be part of the package that we would be, transmitting to the Office of Planning. So it's really more of a thought kind of conversation, and for folks to start thinking about this as a framework that OP is putting together, and to start thinking themselves about what resonates, what fits, and what doesn't.
Okay,
David,
thanks.
great. David, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, just to Christian's point, the event that I was able to attend, seeking input, I saw a question that was framed in two separate ways. One that was asking specifically about Metro, and Metro stops, Metro hubs, but also another separate question that was framed in terms of bus routes. The exact language is not coming to mind, but I did see that distinction being made. And so, given the confusion here, at least in terms of Matt, your read on the situation and Christian's question, I think it's worth seeking further clarification. But that's different from the impression that I received, and certainly anecdotally, some of what I heard people talking about is essentially I saw people giving input on all of the above, both bus routes and Metro. So further clarification is probably warranted.
Great. That's perfect. Did you go to one of the events where you had the board and the cards?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Frank and I did that one together. It was a fun field trip. Howard.
Yeah, I like the outcome of the meeting as meetings as you reported it. I personally agree with those priorities. I believe, although I'd be interested in hearing further discussion. Just a small point about the grocery stores. I think it would be useful to specify that what communities need. I think most people would agree are high quality grocery stores that sell high quality food at an affordable price. I mean, we don't want to just have a bunch of 7-Elevens, for example, or a bunch of Whole Foods, which are overpriced. So, and I think this grocery store issue is going to get more attention given what the new mayor in New York City is proposing. So I think it's worth paying attention to that issue.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%, Howard. Now, I think the more examples that we can share. So the last thing I'll say on this topic before we transition is I had a chance to talk to one of the Office of Planning folks who's going to come and join us, next year. And he was our representative for quote unquote Area C, which is kind of a slightly larger area than the Mid City. It kind of included downtown and Mid-City and Columbia Heights. And so, what he was doing was getting feedback from folks about primarily amenities. Where would you want to see more density? Where would you want to see different amenities? One of the things that he asked is, does your community go to Whole Foods? And I said, yeah, people will walk to Whole Foods all the time. I said, they'll actually walk all the way down U Street to go to Trader Joe's. And his comment was, people seem to walk forever to get to a Trader Joe's. He's like, they're a draw unlike anything I've seen. And so his follow-on question was, but if you think about more commercial activity beyond the grocery stores, what is it that people are going to? And that's actually a place that we felt like we were coming up a little bit short, that there weren't a lot of other things that people were walking to. And so I think one of the things that OP's thinking about, one of the things that, as economic development, it'll be interesting for us to think about are, how do you potentially create hubs of economic activity that draw people from the community to them? And you do have some natural draws where you're feeding yourself, so you're going to a grocery store, and other things that are less kind of natural draws. But I think that's something that they're grappling with as they think about how retail has fundamentally changed in the last 20 years, and really trying to kind of think about how we get people out on the street, and how we get people to go to and support different businesses. Yes, it's a changed landscape and a changed philosophy than we've had, from years past. Arlene, I saw your hand up, and Mario, I saw your hand up. So Arlene, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Matt. These are a couple of issues that actually came up during the zoning hearings on 1617U, 1620V. I represented the neighbors that are very close to this site. And one of the things that consistently came up was a more holistic approach to development. And it seems to me that we can't really talk about increasing density without addressing public services that go along with that. Are there any plans for increasing public services to serve the increasing population? And I'm specifically thinking about schools. I'm a mother. My daughter is out of school now, but that's a very important thing if you're trying to attract families to the area. And schools, and on public property that we seem to be just giving away to economic development, where are the public services that are going to support the families? So schools are really an important thing that I would really like the ANC Commission to address and think about. And the other thing is, I'm getting to be an old person now, so I start thinking about EMS services. The fire and police station that are currently at 1617 U Street, they provide a really important public service for all residents, but also for the elderly. And if we want to keep the elderly and really serve a broad swath of our community, young and old, we need to think about those kind of public services as well. So schools, fire, EMS, and police. What is this comp plan, or how is this comp plan going to address that? And I think ANC 1B should really advocate for those kinds of public services to be increased as well, not just density.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely on point. The other one that I would add into that, just from the list before, but the ANC's definitely talked about this, is that if you add, I'm going to make up a number, you add 500 new apartments at 14th Street and 16th Street at U, and you don't add 1 square foot of park space, what happens to the existing park space? And so these are the types of things, frankly, that we really do need to be thoughtful about, and I think we need to be advocates for, because I think one of the things that there's natural advocacy around is adding housing. I don't think there's as much natural advocacy for all the things that people love, and that bring them here. And I've said this a
And
couple,
keep them here too, and keep them here.
Yep, and I've said this before, right? This is a very competitive city in terms of in terms of what neighborhoods people want to move to and live in. And you are seeing places like Navy Yard, where I don't want to live because I love our area. But Navy Yard's got a lot of green space that's been carved out as part of their development. And so I think we do need to be thoughtful about, how many units are we adding and what amenities and resources need to go along with it. So Arlene,
Yeah,
I think that's great. And I think that is something that this commission does need to, and this committee does need to be thinking about adding to the list.
yeah, and make sure that we are actually being inclusive and we're looking at a cross section of the people who live here. Um, a lot of us have lived here for a long time, and we want to continue to live here. We've invested a lot, not only financially, but just socially and economically, and just by investing in the community. So I think we need to consider all of these things and not just density.
Yep. Mario.
Yeah, hi. I'm a new neighbor to the area, moved in here in March. And I just want to talk along the previous idea that the person speaking, don't remember the name, I'm so sorry, was saying about talking about schools. I think the other thing that we should be bringing is healthcare services because I'm from Spain. We have the concept of the 15-minute city. Um, Economic activity has changed a lot, but grocery stores, healthcare providers, pet pet health, and schools are the main drivers for people to move into neighborhoods. I myself, when I look for housing here in the city, I was looking how close I'm to a gym, how close I am to Trader Joe's specifically. Are there any schools or universities nearby? Because the type of population that will live nearby usually are, like, it's a safer area if there's like a school around it. So those are other areas that we can look at, and parks, of course, not just what economical development is happening.
That's great. And sorry, Mario, is it the 55 city minute city or the 15?
15-minute city.
15 minute city.
Everything is within 15 minutes of your household. Yeah.
I love it. I think that's we should talk about it as we get into that phase of the discussion. But I would love for us to kind of think about adopting that as one of our ANC 1B planning principles when we think about advocating for as we think about advocating for the types of resources and services in this commission area. Great, Mario. Thank you so much, Chris Otten.
Seconding the 15-minute city big time, and more pedestrian throughways, like closing 18th Street for pedestrian only traffic would be a great idea. But we have real world practice we can look at right now. There's a policy in the comp plan. Just hit Control F in the current comp plan and look up whole neighborhood approach. It specifically guides OP and all these planning agencies like DEMPED. When you build more density, when you bring more people in, look at all these other things that people are talking about: parks, network, traffic networks, your utilities. All of these carry a cost that gets externalized on the taxpayers when the housing density goes up and the developers make lots of money and leave. So it's sort of like has to be a collaborative approach here. And I think OP needs to be reminded of this. Now, the real world application I'm talking about just happened with the football stadium. We're not just getting a stadium there. They're talking about, I heard 12,000 new units or 6,000 new units there, right? 6,000 new units. It took a hearing that lasted 14 hours. At around 10 o'clock that night, a fire department representative, DC FEMS, showed up and said, hey, all this talk about all this housing and a big football stadium and a brand new community, what about a fire station? Like, it literally took somebody at FEMS to say that before anybody even thought about that. And so I definitely encourage this commission to make it clear, like, when you talk about density and increasing it, because everybody's rah-rahing that, it's sort of like there's other components to it that have to be included. And when we talk about housing density, I would like this commission and every commission, everybody should be housing is not a monolith. We need to make clear of the segments of housing that we really need, right? So, do we need more studio one bedrooms? Does anybody on this call really think we need studio one bedrooms? We have lots of them. There's lots of vacancies. I'd like to see more studies about how many of these units are actually vacant, especially after COVID. And like the real need, every report I've seen is there's a humongous housing shortage for truly affordable family size housing. So again, I'll go to a real world application, Union Market. There were 5,000 new units built there, 1,000 new hotel rooms. You can count on two hands how many affordable family size units were built there out of all of 20 acres of land and thousands of new units. So I'm just saying that we have an onus on us to kind of hold the mirror back up to OP to say we need to actually plan with a call for all this new density.
Yeah, Chris, I want to make two comments on what you're saying. The first is when I was talking with OP on Saturday, one of the things that they said that I love and that sometimes we forget about is they're like, it's like a real life Sim City. Um, I have kind of self forbade myself from playing Sim City because I might actually lose my job and just play Sim City all day long. But when you think about kind of SimCity, it's about all the different things that need to be there, right? So it is about healthcare and it is about groceries and it is about education and it is about right all these different things. I think it's interesting, Chris, to hear you say that FEMS was the group that actually had to wait their turn to say, don't forget about fire and emergency medical services. So
It was
let's just
shocking.
what's that?
It was shocking to see.
So let's just make sure that we've got kind of those hats on as we are kind of beginning to put our requests and recommendations together. As I said, I feel like housing tends to have a natural advocate. All these other services don't so much. And so that's a part of what our job has to be is to advocate for the other things that need to be there. We also
Yeah,
have, go ahead.
yeah. Where I just wanted to jump in there is what I'm sort of hearing from Arlene and Chris, and I'm not trying to put words into your mouth or anything. Is it's kind of like a hierarchy of amenities. And we have to start thinking about what amenities are out there, what populations, they benefit from. Arlene brought up the fact like EMS, I don't think about EMS on a daily basis, but other people do. I think about amenity equals like gym access, outdoor access. Other people are going to have very different views. And what I just am a little worried about is the way that OP was sort of summarizing that with the grocery stores. Grocery store is kind of the lowest common denominator. Everyone wants that. It's really important. But at the same time, there's a lot of other stuff out there. And maybe that's what we should be thinking about. It's how to put together this hierarchy of amenities that we would like to see with density. And make sure that is inclusive because it's my hierarchy is going to be different than Matt's hierarchy. It's going to be different than, everyone else's hierarchy. So, we just need to have that reflecting, some sort of broader consensus that we can develop.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to comment on, and then Jerry Johnson's got his hand up, so he'll go here after in just a moment. But Chris, the other thing you had talked about was the idea of housing not being monolithic. Kristen is going to take us through some numbers here as we get into the resolution discussion. But one of the things that I particularly like is how varied the additional housing that's gone into the mid city has been. And how we've been able to maintain a lot of different types of housing structures and housing types, which I think creates other types of diversity. So I don't want to lose sight of that as well. Density is not density, housing is not housing. And so I would like to encourage us as we kind of take our next steps into the planning conversations, that we are also thinking more specifically about the needs and the types and the opportunities, and to be less generic. I think OP, because they are focused on the whole city, has to be somewhat generic. I think we have the opportunity to get more specific and to really, paint that vivid picture for them about the needs and the opportunities in our area. And I'm excited to do it. I think we're kind of edging into kind of that moment to be able to do it. Jerry Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to be brief, but I have a couple of things. I put a link in the chat box concerning a piece that was released today in BizNow, and the piece addresses I guess what I would call a dire situation that currently exists in large-scale development in the city. And what you will learn when you read the piece, and you just have to register to use the site. It's free. What you'll learn is that developers now are throwing in the towel on large-scale development sites. So for at least the next few years, because in many cases, the developers have sat on these sites for 10 years, for at least the next few years and probably longer, there is not going to be a significant number of new units, typically apartment units, that will be coming on the market. So the conversation regarding, adding additional housing units to the city needs to take into account that the current market conditions, and it's not just that the cost of development has gone up. The city and the metropolitan area are not seeing the job creation that drives new development. So yes, I invite everyone to look at that. Comment number 2 is also related to existing conditions. There are 2 sites under construction right now on the 900 block of W Street. So just steps away from the entrance to the Whole Foods. These were sites that I actually looked at for purchase, and I elected not to purchase them. Both of those sites were sold at a huge discount, because that's the only way that people are willing to purchase development sites. Both of those sites were eligible and have been eligible since 2006 for upzoning. And if you know the upzoning process, it involves the future land use map, and these sites were designated in the future land use sites going back to 2006 for a greater number of units. But the developers who bought those 2 sites both were only willing to develop 9 units in both sites, so as to avoid inclusionary zoning. So infill properties that could potentially have delivered many units are not going to. And that reflects, the current market conditions. The developer is going to use inexpensive stick frame construction, a limited number of units that his investors are willing to take the risk on, and that's the situation. So in our discussions, or in the discussions of this committee, we really need to not be pie in the sky in how we perceive the market, because this large number of units that delivered over the last 2 years, that's coming to an end, and it is not going to restart unless job creation all of a sudden starts to take off. So what does all this mean? It means that we as a committee should probably look at why ANC 1B has seen such a significant decline in the quality of life over the last 6 or 7 years. And one way to look at this situation is the number of of young families who have left, and these are not young families with deep pockets that that you might have read about in the New York Times, who moved to the Hudson River Valley or out Long Island. These are people that had the small family units that everyone proclaims that we need, and these people left because the quality of life just went to hell in our neighborhood. We had people driving around the neighborhood, not stopping at stop signs, driving around stolen vehicles with paper tags for years. We had the highest crime rate. My former ANC, one BO2, had the highest violent crime rate in the city for years on end. So are we going to push for policies that address this incredible decline in the quality of life here, which has driven people to move, or are we going to focus on pie in the sky, beliefs about, adding a whole bunch of new units, and keeping prices down? So anyway, that's apologize for my negative attitude, but things have been bad, and to not own up to that as we enter into this process of taking a deep look at city policies, we need to be honest. The city made policy choices which really harmed our neighborhood, and are we going to push back against that, or are we just going to allow things to continue on the existing path? Okay, thank you for listening to my very long comment. And
Yeah. Jerry, thank you for sharing. And I think your first point regarding current economic conditions are absolutely important. It's unlikely that we're going to see any kind of change in those local economic conditions for a minimum of another 3 years. So I think there's a lot of kind of potential stalls that could happen or could expand.
And Jerry, when you're talking about the 900 block of W, you're talking about the Riley's old house, right?
Yes, that site and the site next to it, the garage.
The garage. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, just for everyone else, I mean, they're right next to the Rhapsody condominium, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's like what, a 8-story building?
Yeah. Well, 7, I guess you'd call it, but
Okay.
162 units, right?
And so that's a huge loss in potential density. I mean, I just want to emphasize that to people. That's really staggering, because that really and it goes to what we're talking about in this resolution in hopefully a few minutes. I mean, that could have potentially been a lot more sites, and just putting in 9 units there is pretty staggering.
Indeed, I agree.
Well, and I think understanding why it's only 9, right? So, and Jerry, you hit on this, which is over 9, they were required by DC law to begin incorporating inclusionary zoning units, into that plan. So, if they had built 11 units or 14 units, they would have had a whole different set of standards that they would have needed to incorporate and manage to. And so I think it's important to understand why people are making these types of decisions, because it would have been a positive thing for the community to have seen 18 units there instead of 9. And I think at some point we do have to kind of ask the question about where are we potentially getting in our own way? And I don't mean this committee, I mean the District of Columbia, getting in our own way, discouraging folks of building more kind of more housing. So I think this is worth talking about more. Jerry, thank you for your comments, and thank you for being here. We'll look forward to talking to you more.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
All right, let's pivot. Commissioner Barrio is on the line. You don't need to say anything, Francois, but I'm gonna allow you to talk here. Let's do this. I'd like to pull up the resolution, and that way we can unpack kind of some pieces of this. We're starting this a little bit later than I'd wanted to, so my apologies for that. But I think the conversation up to this point was really good. Commissioner Barrio put a proposal together for the commission's review at its November meeting. He is planning to bring it back again in a revised form in December. And the zoning folks had a chance to talk about this on Monday. Mr. Otten joined them, shared his comments and questions. And so what I want is for the Economic Development Committee to review this resolution and to think about either questions that we have, clarifications that we would like to make, so that we can better inform both Commissioner Barrios and the Commission's thinking on this. I think that I think Jerry's comments are right. We got to be thoughtful about the types of policy positions that we take because they do influence how people behave and the types of things that they do. And so we want to make sure that we're being thoughtful and thinking through this. Let me share the actual document here. Give me 1 second just to pull it up. Resolution urging share. Tell me if you can all see this okay, and I'm going to zoom it in just a little bit. Can folks read this? Okay. All of you know this. Howard Kurtzman knows this better than anyone. The whereas clauses are largely there to talk about why am I proposing what I'm proposing. So what's the background? What am I looking at? What am I thinking about? And then the therefore clauses are focused on what is it that I am asking to do. I'm going to go through this very quickly just so that folks have an orientation to it. We didn't get a chance to look at it last time. And then we can go forward. There are a number of different statistics that are highlighted. There's a number of different terms that are included, and there are several references. I am not looking so much to debate details tonight as much as I am looking for folks to say, I think we should clarify that further, or I generally like that, or I generally don't agree, right? I don't want to get into nitpicking about 35% versus 32%. I want to say, are we sure 35% is really the right number? Let's go back and make sure that the source is accurate there. And then we'll turn to the therefore clauses and look at what Commissioner Barrio is proposing. This is a resolution urging gentle density throughout the District of Columbia. So this is a resolution that is focused on the entirety of DC. It is not just focused on the Commission Area 1B. Whereas DC has an acute housing shortage with a 2022 study pegging the shortfall at 116,000 homes, equivalent to 35% of the district's entire housing stock. Whereas the DC housing shortage is displacing longtime residents, hampering economic growth, and making the district an increasingly unaffordable place to live and raise a family. Whereas 23% of DC's land area is zoned exclusively for single-family detached homes, whereas exclusionary zoning restricts the type and amount of housing that property owners can legally build on existing lots, thus reducing the supply of housing and driving up home prices, rents, and land values for district residents. Whereas exclusionary zoning perpetuates racial and economic segregation in the district by walling off wealthy neighborhoods from new residents and pushing growth and the risk of displacement into less affluent areas. Whereas the district's comprehensive plan guides the use, density, and design of buildings within the district, directly shaping the city's physical form as it changes and develops in the future. Whereas the Office of Planning, OP, helps prepare the comprehensive plan and is tasked with planning for the long-term growth of the District of Columbia to help ensure it reflects our values of an inclusive and vibrant city. Whereas the first rewrite of the district's comprehensive plan in nearly 20 years provides a once-in-a-generation opportunity to relax exclusionary zoning and increase the supply of family-sized homes across the district. Whereas a recent poll found that district residents want an end to exclusionary zoning, 63% of district residents favor allowing fourplexes in areas currently zoned for single-family homes, including a majority of white, Black, and person of color residents, and residents of all 8 wards. Whereas density can be introduced in a gradual manner that reflects DC's historical development as a row house city and benefits residents, reduces displacement, and preserves and enhances neighborhood character, vitality, and amenities. Whereas the research shows that the price of 4-unit infill conversion in the district would be approximately 33% less than existing structures, creating a substantial affordability benefit for district residents aspiring to own their own home, own or rent a home. Whereas there is extensive evidence that new housing lowers rents and makes housing more affordable by reducing housing scarcity and freeing up older, more affordable units. Whereas research shows that legalizing by right infill conversion of existing structures to up to 6 units per lot could produce approximately 1,000 family-sized starter homes per year in the district, more than 5 times the rate of single-family detached housing built in DC over the last decade. Whereas single-family homes are essential for young families that need more bedrooms to raise children than are currently being offered by new apartment buildings, which primarily offer studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. So this is now the kind of the proposed policy position of this resolution. Therefore, be it resolved by Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1B that the commission requests that the comprehensive plan support by right gentle density throughout the District of Columbia to increase housing production by including the following principles. The first, infill conversions of existing single-family detached structures to row homes, townhomes, and small homes are an essential source of new family-sized housing and should be allowed by right in residential zone areas throughout the district. Row houses should be allowed by right through the district, reflecting DC's legacy as a row house city. Multiplexes up to 6 units should be allowed by right in residential zones in planning areas that, unlike Mid-City, where ANC 1B is located, have not met their new affordable housing units target. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs up to 1,200 square feet, should be simple and easy to build. Owner occupation requirements, 5-year use restrictions, and other policies that unnecessarily limit housing opportunities should be removed to spark a boom in ADU construction. Floor area ratios, setbacks, and height regulations should be aligned with the realistic needs of infill conversions, ensuring that zoning standards do not unintentionally prevent viable projects that add new housing while respecting the scale of surrounding blocks. Small-scale subdivisions should be by right permitted use in residential zones to make infill conversions viable. Historic preservation review will continue to apply to all proposed construction in historic districts. DOB, DCOZ, DDOT, DOEE, and related reviewing entities should have a time limit, such as 45 days to approve, conditionally approve, or deny all single-family detached infill conversions and ADUs, after which any complete application should be deemed approved by operation of law. Relevant agencies should hire additional staff to accommodate an increase in permits for infill construction and ADUs. Equality of opportunity for people of all economic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds is inextricably tied to increasing housing production throughout the district. So this is the draft resolution that's been submitted. And what I wanted to do was to bring the knowledge and expertise of this group to raise questions that need to be answered, to offer comments of support on things that folks feel are appropriate and good for the commission to weigh in on, and to raise concerns where you've got things that you are not sure about or uncomfortable with. This is a big policy position for the commission to take. We don't know how the vote's going to go yet, but this is a big policy position, and so it's really important that folks have a chance to weigh in, and that we are refining and honing this in a way that best reflects the priority of the commission and its residents. So Howard Kurtzman, go ahead, and then I'll go to Krishna.
Sure. I have I am sympathetic to the overall goals and approach that are pursued here. and I applaud Commissioner Barrio for bringing this forward. I do have some concerns about this current draft, though, and so I will share a set of maybe 3 or 4 comments and questions for further consideration. One is the term gentle density is used in the title. That seems to be a major theme here, but it's never defined in the resolution. And in fact, the term is only used once in the body of the resolution. I myself had heard the term, didn't really know what it meant. I had to Google it. I suspect I'm not the only reader in that position. So I would suggest either elaborating on what's meant by gentle density or just not using it at all, using that term at all. It might be a distraction. So either direction, I think, would work. Secondly, it was not clear to me, it is not clear to me, whether this proposed policy essentially applies only to detached single-family homes or to, for example, for non-detached, such as row house single-family homes, such as we have many of in our ANC. In which case, this would be a kind of a recipe for breaking up single-family row houses into multiple units, as has been done frequently already. So I think I would recommend that that be clarified. Another point has to do with the last 2 whereas statements talk about the need for new units that can accommodate whole families and would have more than 2 bedrooms, presumably. But that term single family home is used to refer to those kinds of units as well as the units that are being broken down or converted. So the terminology there is not clear. More importantly, I don't think that gentle density policies in and of themselves will lead necessarily to units that can accommodate whole families. It could simply result in having a whole bunch of studios and 1-bedroom apartments. So I think that the gentle density policy would need to be beefed up in some way or added to encourage the development of family-sized units. So I hope that's clear. And finally, going to the therefores, the third to the last bullet talks about that if an application for conversion is not approved within a certain period of time, 45 days, which I think is way too short, by the relevant agencies, then it will get automatically approved. I don't think property decisions, building decisions should be made automatically. There are a lot of reasons why there are going to be delays. Agencies have other priorities, limited resources. It may take time for neighbors who have an interest to get informed and mobilized. There may need to be environmental assessments, all sorts of reasons. But fundamentally, in a representative government, I don't think decisions should be made automatically. By default, I think there needs to be an affirmative decision, deliberation and decision made. So I would vote against this for that line alone. I feel that strongly about it. So those are my comments and suggestions.
Great. I'm having echoes of the East Wing as you're talking about that item. Let's do this. Commissioner Barrio is on the line. We've got hands up from Krishna Kumar, Frank Chauvin, and then from Jerry Johnson in the audience. But Commissioner Barrio, one of the things that I know has come up in a couple of different forums is this question about the focus, whether it is on primarily single-family detached homes or equally focused on single-family detached homes as well as row houses. Is that something I think you've been communicating on that? Is that something that you would like to clarify here, or is that something you'd like to clarify kind of in follow-up to all the different feedback items?
Hello, everybody. I'm Francois, for those of us who haven't met before, and I am the commissioner for 1B02. Thank you all for being on tonight and for the thoughtful engagement with the resolution so far. And I was listening into the end of the housing discussion earlier. It was really interesting. Yeah, and also apologies if you can't hear me very well because I am in a car, but I'm going to do what I can to answer.
We can hear you loud and clear, so go ahead.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, so my main focus with this is focused on being able to convert single family detached structures into higher forms of density, particularly townhomes, row houses, and small homes. So that is, really my primary focus here. And I tried to, this was some feedback I got earlier to your point, Howard, about, some trying to clarify, does this apply to row homes? Does this apply to row house neighborhoods? Is this focused on other areas of the city? And, I do think the main opportunity we have here to add new housing and to not disrupt the fabric of our row house neighborhoods is really focusing on single family detached structures and making it possible to build the row houses that are so characteristic of DC in places that where that's currently illegal to build. So, that is my focus. And I tried to include the specific language around, allowing conversions of single family detached homes in the resolution. But if that's still not clear, then, I'm happy to try to include some additional language to specify that. But that is really my focus, and I think that's where we can add a lot of family-sized housing because, like you mentioned, right now, apartments are an important source of new housing in DC. But as was mentioned earlier, I forgot the speaker's name, unfortunately, but new permits have dropped off a cliff. Right now, the amount of housing permitted in DC is the lowest it's been since the great financial crisis, which is quite bad for the city. And most of the housing that's been built over the last 10 to 15 years has been multifamily, which is not, it's not bad to build multifamily, but those are generally smaller units that are studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. So, I think this resolution focuses on family-sized housing where we have more bedrooms, which is one advantage. So I'll stop there, but I'm happy to go into any other questions or some of the other points that were made.
No, Francois, that's great, and I think a very helpful clarification. Given time and knowing that you'll have the opportunity to respond in a number of different ways, let's continue to get feedback from the committee and the community. Karen Gall, welcome, joined us at 8:25 for the record. Krishna Kumar, then Frank Chauvin, then Ian Hawksworth. We knew you were hosting or leading your 3D CAC meeting. And then we'll go to Jerry Johnson in the audience. So Krishna first.
This is
Okay, can everyone hear me?
and thank you guys for the patience.
All right.
No, welcome. Good to have you here. Krishna, go ahead.
Matt, are we going to be voting on this resolution tonight? Is that your intent? I mean, or is this going to be a feedback, just a feedback session?
So why don't we do this? I was not planning to do a vote. What I was planning to do was to ask the questions that were asked, right? So I think Howard made an excellent point. Made several excellent points, but one of his points was I don't agree with essentially making these decisions by fiat. I will take that particular, so for that example, I will take that example and I will take that back to Commissioner Barrio and the commission, and I will say the Economic Development Committee raised very strong concern about a default judgment related to building permits after 45 days. Howard also shared how he would have voted on this, right, if we were to vote on it just as is. And so my primary objective is to give good, thoughtful, constructive feedback back to Commissioner Barrio and to inform the commission as to the concerns raised and the areas of support voiced so that folks have kind of a sense. After this conversation, right, after we've all kind of weighed in, I am very happy to ask the the committee, if you would like to transmit kind of a broad statement about the draft that we have in front of us via a vote, right? I'm very happy to do that. But let's kind of talk about that at the end. And then maybe my question is, do you need a better answer than that to be able to kind of guide your questions right now?
Okay. And so if you don't mind me, just a quick follow-up. As I said initially, this is actually the fourth version of this resolution. I know Commissioner Barrio has done an amazing job in trying to incorporate feedback And I'm just looking at some of the text here, and I can actually see the feedbacks on some of the things. Howard, I know you weren't able to be at the last meeting, and I raised a lot of the same concerns on the permitting, and I noticed that, the solution I offered, Commissioner Barrio put into the next paragraph, which is relevant agencies should hire additional staff to accommodate an increase in permits for infill construction and ADUs. So I mean, there is a listening process already underway here. If we could get Commissioner Barrio back, the question I just had, because I really just didn't understand this one, in the therefore clauses, small scale subdivision should be by right permitted use in residential zones to make infill conversions viable. I mean, could you, if you're able to talk and can give us some more color on what you were thinking there, because honestly, the words don't really make a lot of sense to me.
Yes, I'm happy to provide some more color there. The thinking there was, if you're going to take a large lot that right now has a home on it, but there's a lot of space around it, there's a big yard and everything, and you want to convert that into a townhouse, or you want to convert that into a set of row houses, you would need to be able to subdivide that lot into multiple lots that viable, so that someone who then is going to purchase one of those homes is able to purchase the land as well. So it's not condos where you don't own the land. It's, you're taking this larger lot and you're converting it into smaller lots. And that way you could also build potentially like small homes on it. You could build, 4 small homes where there is currently only one home.
And this, a lot of this goes back to like what you were talking about. I think this was your brother who was doing the mini homes down in North Carolina.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, an only child.
Okay. Well, trust me, sometimes that's easier. I mean, I guess the only pushback there is, again, in terms of our area, ANC 1B, I just am pretty concerned with that language. I mean, we do have good models to where that is basically what you're talking about is a condo development or type of condo development where the common areas are owned in common and subdivided out. So I'm kind of struggling to see the necessity for that in particular a dense area. I mean, I certainly see where I appreciate the additional color because I can see where you're trying to get to it, and it's maybe just a question of the language there, uh, reflecting that. It may just be me being a little particular. I mean, my overall comment is I think you're doing a great job on this. I think that as I said, I very much appreciate the fact that you've been open to feedback and taking the feedback and putting it into the resolution, and so that is always appreciated. I mean, I think the tension that I see is that this is really a messaging resolution. We're trying to send a message, and then there's some very specific language in here as well. And when you have a messenger resolution and a very specific resolution in the same package, it tends to confuse people. And I think that's maybe some of the confusion and pushback that you're getting is on that. That's sort of a 10,000-foot view, but then again, that's why I'm not a commissioner and don't have to deal with that. You are a commissioner, so you get to you're at a higher level there. All right, that's my 2 cents from the free seats. Yeah, well, trust me, I wasn't knocking on doors. All right, so you've earned that right to, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do.
Let's do this. Let's go to Frank, and then we'll go to Ian, and then we'll go to Jerry, and then back to Howard.
Yes, thanks for participating tonight, Francois. I have, since the beginning, I think, again, this is the 4th version that I've seen, so they've changed, and you seem to have incorporated feedback as we went along here, and so that's appreciated. My first concern from the very beginning, version 1, was, well, how does this affect ANC 1B? And then particularly historic row homes and sort of a foundational strength of the district. It's historic row home communities, and how this would affect a tear down next to me with 6 studio units all of a sudden. And so I think that's can be problematic. And so the concern here from me and other folks I have spoken to, I think might be now addressed in your resolution, but I missed it and somebody pointed it out to me. So I will read it. And it says in your therefore clause, bullet point 3, multiplexes up to 6 units should be allowed by right in residential zones in planning areas that, unlike Mid-City, where ANC 1B is located, have not met their affordable housing units target. So what this is saying, for those that haven't seen the recent data, I think that um, Krishna will be showing, and I happened to see some time ago that ANC 1B has met its affordable housing unit target according to the mayor's plan. It's an ongoing a decade plan, I believe, that is still in play. But 1B's met the affordable housing call in this plan. So therefore, no attached housing or row houses will not be affected or will not be brought into play under this resolution. Am I interpreting this correctly?
Yeah. So my intention with that specific provision was to say that for planning areas that have fallen well short of their affordable housing target and their new housing target, that additional density should be allowed because there's a greater need for new homes there, and we need homes in those places. So yeah, you're 100% right that would not impact ANC 1B because we have met our target and we have built a substantial amount of new housing over the last 6 years. Yeah.
All right.
And then, sorry, to Krishna's point briefly about the small scale subdivisions, I just wanted to say that I'm happy to offline about that to try to clarify the language. And I think, once again, I'm really trying to focus more on the low density parts of DC. They're not row house neighborhoods already. Like what we're trying to make possible here is to have more row house neighborhoods in DC. That's my vision.
My second quick question, maybe just a minute here, is having to do with I think the affordability need. For some reason, we all have in the back of our brain because it's been in national elections and big city elections, but affordability, and we use the zoning code to promote affordability. Some with failure, some probably better than other decision making with allowing more density and what should happen if more density is allowed on a lot. And I think that recently a very strong housing advocate here on the call tonight has raised this to me and several folks probably is that if we allow for density, shouldn't something be giving back to promote some specific affordable component, such as 25% affordable 3-unit family housing? That's my first question. And so, second isn't there isn't this really a requirement to provide or require this extra density to produce family size housing with 3 bedrooms? Because if you look at Ward 5 or perhaps 7 and 8, where you have a lot of single family homes, all of a sudden, all these single family homes are on the board for developer, onslaught and product making or profit making at the expense of folks that are going to sell out. So shouldn't we allow those lesser well-off, and it's not referenced here, but because we're talking about wealthy folks in the upper Northwest or west of Rock Creek planning area, I think Matt has defined, we should be talking about affordability in those lesser well-off areas to preserve it if we're allowing that lot in a less affordable area to be used to increase density. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to respond to that. So, I think affordability is super important. And I want to say at the outset that I don't think that this policy change, if it actually is enacted, would solve all of these housing affordability challenges. Housing is very expensive in the district. Housing is scarce in the district relative to the demand for housing. And so, this is not going to be the silver bullet that solves all of our problems. At the same time, as noted in the resolution, the homes that would be created through this by allowing for increased density would be significantly less expensive than the existing homes that are available. And so I think that that's important to keep in mind, is that these homes would be much more affordable for families. At the same time, I agree that someone who's very, very low income is not going to be able to afford to own a new townhouse in Upper Northwest. So I do think there should be other programs as to try to help those folks. But I do want to caution that, as was pointed out earlier on the call, when we add affordability requirements or inclusionary zoning to sort of condition that on development, what we see is that these projects just don't make economic sense and they don't get built, and we don't get any new housing. And so I think it's really important that we try to craft this policy so that we do get new housing, especially when we're talking about not a really large building and a large scale project where you have JBG Smith coming in and building 200 units. We're talking about, someone who just wants to convert their existing home into a duplex, or who wants to convert their home into 3 townhomes. That's going to be a much smaller scale project. It's going to involve a lot less money. It's going to involve local contractors generally. And so if suddenly you require 25% of those units to be affordable and you don't provide any help to the person who's trying to develop those homes, all of a sudden their entire margin on that project is gone. And we've seen in other places like Seattle where they had a policy to allow for these conversions that when they added an inclusionary zoning requirement on these small scale projects, they just basically stopped happening. So, I think it's important for us to think about all the different ways that we can help lower income renters and people who are aspiring to own that, don't have as much means. But I don't think that an inclusionary zoning requirement for wanting to add, an ADU in your backyard would be helpful for the district in any way and would help with affordability.
Just one quick response, and then I'll say thank you. I think we have to just make a distinction between inclusionary zoning or versus allowance for increased density, because inclusionary zoning would then is an allowance. Like if you build, that's why on W Street, Mr. Johnson described 9 units being built instead of 10, because the 10th unit would need to be inclusionary zoning and difficult to promote financially. However, if we're talking about allowance for being able to build one more unit, I think they're two different stories with two different regimes and protocols. So I think it's important to keep them a little separate. But thank you.
Great. Thanks, Frank, and thanks, Francois. And I think we're making excellent points, and I think that ties back very well to what Jerry Johnson shared with us earlier. Ian, this the order. Ian, then Jerry, then Howard, then Chris, then Tanya.
Thanks. And thanks very much, Francois, for reaching out and responding and etc. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of my neighborhood because I think we've lived through an example of what this might look like. So where I am is across from the police station. There's a lot of row houses, and they're quite small and they're quite compact. But there was some developer, I found a lot where there was a bit of extra space, and he managed to buy it, tear it down, and put up a 5-unit condo building, which dominates and has changed the nature of the area. And I think that's a shame and unnecessary. It's not family housing. It's used as Airbnbs, and it's used for college students who are going deep into debt to be able to stay there, et cetera, et cetera. No, and I wish them well. But when you first presented your proposal, I thought it was great in the sense that I think family housing is needed. I don't particularly think that finding the most expensive land areas in DC and putting it up there is the way to get most bang for the family buck. But I think it's a great idea to focus on family housing and 3 bedrooms, etc. What I heard when we went through the whereas recently is basically another allowing for small apartment blocks to be put up everywhere in what is currently row houses or semi-detached or detached housing, which is completely different. So I hope I misunderstood that, but that's a completely different proposition. And if I understand you correctly, that's not what you want. If what you want is row houses, then please take out these or edit it so we don't have these small by right apartment buildings popping up in the traditional DC areas. I would also echo what was talked about before. Let's empower the people who live here and be very careful with the by rights, because it's alienating and not fit for democracy. But let me end on a more positive note. Say I do sympathize and I do support your intention. But I think in this case the devil is in the detail. So I wish you well, but please listen and let's take care of not to destroy those type of neighborhoods that everybody seems to want to live in. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. All right. Give me a second here. We've got Jerry.
Okay, I'm not going to ramble on this time. Promise. This is a great start. I do have a couple of suggestions. One of which is that it would be very helpful for people reading the resolution to have as an exhibit that is included with the resolution a map that shows the areas that we propose would be subject to this change. The commissioner has alerted us that he's looking at areas in Upper Northwest. I added the link to a lot, a rare occurrence of a undeveloped lot in Crestwood, because I believe that the proposal would also work well for Crestwood and for Portal and Colonial Village, all of which are adjacent the 16th Street bus corridor. Those areas are developed with fairly large lots that have single family homes, many of which are in a state of there's still quite a few that are in a state of disrepair and could be converted not to a larger single family home, but to potentially something bigger. I do not believe that those neighborhoods are going to be amenable to infill that is row houses, though. They probably want to keep the character of the neighborhood. But as I just stated, many of those houses many of those lots with existing houses that are going to be raised down to the foundations, or potentially just keeping a portion of them, many of those could be rebuilt, probably with 3 or 4 units. Okay, so in addition to showing the map, I think it would be very helpful if the commissioner, Barrios, would perhaps discuss this with Jenny Schutz, who is the person who I think is credited with coming up with gentle density as a concept. She lives in a single family home in Crestwood. I think her house might be in the portion of Crestwood that is attached houses, but irrespective of that, um, um, it wouldn't be that difficult to show what this would look like, and show also how this might pencil. Because if a family unit is, say, 1,500 square feet, many of these lots are big enough for a 6,000 square foot residence that would accommodate 4 families. And I think this could be done in a way that is aesthetically acceptable to people. So I I guess what I'm saying is I think the concept here is great. We should include some evidence that supports the concepts, so that someone reading this has an idea of exactly what we're talking about.
Great.
Anyway, that's it. And I did
No,
ramble, and I'm sorry.
Thanks, Jerry. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I really wanted to make sure that we got the expertise of this group is that, and I've said this to Commissioner Barrio, when I hear you talk about it, I hear one thing. When I read it, I hear something else. And so this is a chance to give feedback on the written word, to help provide kind of some additional clarity. And I think you all are weighing in with that kind of clarity. So thank you. Kurtzman, then Otten, then Shand.
Thank you. I want to step back. The discussion seems to show that if these policies were enacted, they really wouldn't have much of an impact on ANC 1B or our ward. They would have an impact on other wards and neighborhoods like Cleveland Park and Crestwood and elsewhere. I don't think that our ANC should be spending time developing policies and resolutions for other neighborhoods. And for sure, the residents of those neighborhoods will not take kindly to these proposed policies. So why is the ANC? I would hope that the ANC would focus on things that matter for our ANC, and not use up valuable time and effort dealing with issues in other neighborhoods. That's what I would say. So I would like, my preference, I earlier said I would vote against it. My preference would be to just table it because it's just not in the domain of this ANC, ideally, in my view.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Howard. Chris Otten, then Tanya Shand, then Mario Carrera.
Oh, hey guys. Okay, so I want to second Kurtzman's point. But as somebody who's worked with neighbors around the city, we've used the administrative review, like at BZA, to actually win more affordable family size housing and projects. When developers want to ask for bigger this and go up here, we can ask for more through this administrative review. So when you make things by right, that possibility is gone. But here quickly, there's some comments. The first whereas in this resolution, number one, out the gate, shows the kind of ambiguity and confusion most of the rest of the proposal consists of. And thus, the result is this very overreaching solution bulleted list at the bottom that resolves that don't really match the problem at all. I think we can work on this, if not table it. For example, the first whereas cites a housing shortage, I think of about 116,000 odd units. That study actually shows how many units could be built if all the single family detached housing in DC was demolished and replaced with small apartments. That's not a showing of need. That's not a showing of need, right? That's a showing of like anticipation of what density gains could happen there. So that's the type of misdirection. I think it's important throughout this proposal. Like, I think we got to strike the whole concept of gentle density and other terms thrown in here, like legalize this or exclusionary that, and actually speak in planning terms the city uses and knows. This proposal is actually suggesting this commission take a position that R1 zone districts be rezoned to row home zone districts like RA1, for example. So the unnecessarily provocative and objectively false notion of exclusionary zoning and walling folks off is simply inappropriate, is because nearly half of the city half of the R1 residential zone districts in this city are in wards 5, 7, and 8. And I'd say those are neighborhoods we can say aren't necessarily wealthy, not necessarily exclusive. They've been quite inclusive for working families. So that's the sort of stuff I'm talking about here. It's really broad in its strokes. If the commission wants to target Rock Creek West single family residential zone districts, okay, then the commission should be specific about that, or the proposer should be specific about that. Otherwise, if you're going to make an impact towards 5, 7, and 8, you're going to have to ask OP or others for a race and class impact study to accompany this, and how that might affect more vulnerable neighborhoods where families do live. They rent their homes and unironically may be displaced by this drive to rezone whole cloth entire neighborhoods where they live. But I don't think the sources and citations relied on in the whereas clauses really care about that. They're conservative think tanks and real estate industry citations. Okay, this is the American Enterprise Institute and RealPage. RealPage is being sued right now by the Attorney General for helping large real estate companies price fix, including right here in DC. So I think the commission, if it's going to do this at all, it has to recommend guardrails. So any additional density granted by rezoning of, say, areas in Ward 3 from R1 to RA1, that this additional density granted by right be dedicated to affordable family-sized housing. Otherwise, we know the market will tear down family-sized homes and replace it with 4, 5, 8 unit, likely unaffordable studio bedroom units. And that's just how it goes. That's the market's after profit. So if we're serious about addressing the shortage of family-sized housing, then we need a policy that is also serious about that. So I'll just conclude. The commission, if it's going to deal with this proposal at all, should very keenly focus on single family detached districts in Ward 3, which is where I think the intent is here. Second, require that the density created through this upzoning from R1 to RA1, for example, are guaranteed affordable families, dedicated family size units, and that it should still maintain an administrative review process. BZA, there's nothing wrong with going to the BZA. People do it all the time. They did it for all those row homes up right and down on Ontario Road, right around the block. And they've built 5, 6 unit buildings here. I mean, Mr. Hawksworth spoke about that as well. They had to have an administrative review, gives a chance for neighbors to see how we can squeeze this density in without being willy-nilly about it. And we have a conversation about it. I don't see anything wrong with that. So the commission otherwise would be taking a principle that doesn't have to happen anymore. Sorry, it's by right. We get to do it. So there definitely has to be some clarifications here. And I hope that you all can do that.
Great. Chris, thank you very much. And Chris has communicated extensively with Commissioner Barrio as well. Tanya, you're up next. Then Mario, David Martin, I saw your hand up a moment ago. So if you do want to speak, okay. So Tanya, you're up next.
Good evening. I think I'm pretty much going to succinctly echo what some of the other folks have said. One is that if a building has a fire or something next door and it's purchased by someone, I don't want them to be able to build something beyond the existing footprint. I think we all go to neighborhoods because we like the character and don't want to have in my case, where I am, 3 or 4 story building with several units in it, because that's not the type of neighborhood that I chose to live in. I chose to live in some place that doesn't have not a lot of condos, not a lot of tall buildings. There are row houses. And so that means then that you are building something that is at the cost of the other neighbors who decided to live in what would be 2 or 3 story size townhomes. So that's one point. I generally have a policy that I do not support or vote things that I would not want for myself. So if it's not something that I wouldn't mind next door, I'm not going to ask for or vote for something where it's going to happen to other folks. And so that goes to the point of it's not going to impact me. It's going to impact folks around me. And they should be able to weigh in on what they want next door to them. So that would mean I would be voting no. Thank you.
Great. Tanya, thank you so much. Mario, you're up, and then to Krishna.
I'll be very brief. I resonate a lot with like what Chris said. These ideas sound great in theory, but how they're executed, it's the thing that will cut. Like the devil is in the details, as I think I don't know, Ian said. There's no way a family can make the investment on buying a single family home to turn it into a multi-unit. It's going to be a big corporation. So definitely I see issues with this. I've seen it in many of the row homes in the neighborhood. It's really hard to buy $1 million row home here in Shaw and make the investment into turning it into multiple units. So I don't think this is something that will work for our ANC.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it. Krishna, then we'll wrap up with Arlene, and then we'll talk next steps.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think I'm just trying to listen to all the comments here and get the feedback. And what this comes down to is really going back to what you originally talked about, Matt, which was about the comp plan. Because if you look at the comp plan, one of the objectives of the Mid-City area was preserving our row house neighborhoods. And I think a lot of the debate that we're having here is on the value of that. And I hear a lot of, I hear people on, I hear pushing on either side. Ian, you brought up the condo building. I think I know which one you're talking to. It's an attractive looking building. I didn't realize it was single co-living, which is different. You're negative on that. Chris, you brought up Ontario Road, which has had a number of developments, and it's kind of a success because it's brought in some affordable housing. I think other people might view that as a failure. They're not happy with what's happening in Ontario Road. There's a lot of disagreement we have about what's good, and that's what I think what we're really a lot of it fighting about is trying to grapple this. Is a huge issue for us to be thinking about. So I really appreciate the conversation here.
Great. Thank you, Krishna. Arlene, we'll close with you.
Oh,
Arlene,
yeah, I found the unmute button. Sorry. I guess I have two main comments. The first one is some of the studies that were cited in the whereas clauses. I don't think that they seem to be one-sided. I don't think they reflect all of the studies that were done. And I'll point out one in particular where it says towards the end of the whereas, it says extensive evidence that new housing lowers rents and makes housing more affordable. I don't think that's true. There might be a couple of studies that say that, but there are plenty of studies that say the opposite. So to include that in a whereas statement is not really valid. And I hope that we can actually look at those studies that he's citing, because we can find other studies that negate that. So that's not really a true statement. And I want to point out one particular. It was a presentation by the Committee of 100 on housing in the district, and I'm sorry, the gentleman's name is he? I can't remember his name exactly, but he's been working in housing and housing affordability for years and years, and he cited a Cambridge, Massachusetts project where they allow more density, but all the density that they're creating must be affordable. If a developer wants to come in and create more density, they have to have it all affordable. And that's the only way Cambridge, Massachusetts will allow its density to be increased. So there are other options out there, and it just requires good government policy, not lobbying by developers, for-profit developers. We need some good government policy on this. And I think the ANC this committee and the whole commission should really think about policy behind this and other studies. We need to know exactly which studies are being cited here. And the other comment is one that was reflected by Howard and Chris. I don't see how this resolution is really the purview of ANC 1B at all. We shouldn't really be making decisions for other ANCs around the district. Even in the therefore statement, it says ANC 1B wouldn't really be affected by this resolution. So ANC 1B is supposed to represent our neighborhood, our constituents. I don't think that this is doing that, and I don't think that the commission should vote on this. And I would agree that it should be tabled.
Okay, great. Thanks, Arlene. We've got two new hands up. I want to just make a comment here. I want to make a comment here. We'll turn it to Karen Gall, then to David Martin, and then we'll wrap up. The first thing I want to say, this topic, this kind of actually specific item, as well as kind of the broader, is something that city governments across the country are wrestling with right now, right? So I'll be honest, I am thrilled that we are having this conversation. I am thrilled that there are really smart minds who are having very respectful conversations and voicing different opinions and perspectives on this is happening right now. This needs to happen. I wish that our own council was having a debate and a conversation and a series of hearings about this, because the idea of housing affordability, the idea, as Jerry, I need better glasses, Johnson said, that this isn't a monolithic conversation and the solutions are not monolithic. It requires that we get more knowledgeable, more specific, more nuanced, more appropriate. This is a conversation that will continue to happen and has to happen. I appreciate Commissioner Barrio's willingness to kind of charge in and to put something on the table to start that conversation and to say, hey, look, I'm paying attention to the data and I see parts of the city that are really growing housing stock, and I see other parts of the city that aren't creating housing stock, and I'd like to put an idea on the table. This is how change happens. This is how conversations happen. And I believe at my core that the democratic process of bringing lots of different people together from lots of different backgrounds ultimately produces a much better outcome than one person who is, kind of saying, this is what we're going to do. I won't name any names or point in the direction of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But what Francois said is, look, I'm gonna put this idea forward, and I'm going to look for input and feedback. So I think we've done that. I think this has been very helpful. I'm going to summarize all of this and send it to Commissioner Barrio as well as the commissioners so that folks can kind of think about where they want to go with this. We've got our committee, the whole meeting scheduled on Monday of next week. The commission meeting itself is scheduled on Thursday, December 4th. And I'm glad that we had an opportunity for this conversation. Francois, I see your hand is up. I'd love for you to be able to respond if you'd like to. And then we do have two final comments, one from Karen Gall and one from David Martin.
Is it okay if I make my comment? Because Francois may be able to add to my comment. I know I haven't spoken this evening, but is that okay?
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
I can't guarantee I'll be able to respond to everything everybody said, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to have this segmented into your response, because I think that we have touched base, as you mentioned, on a nationwide issue of what's going on in regards to affordability. But the first concept that we need to really get clear is what is actual affordability. And I've heard you all speak about the various areas throughout the District of Columbia, and said the term used was there's some wealthy and some not so wealthy. That's true. I do think that the idea behind this, which and just forsaking the section where Mr. Chris Otten mentioned where the predatory capitalism that was happening, forsaking that part, I think that knowing that the ability to have young families, or anyone who has the need for 3 to 4 bedroom units to be placed in neighborhoods that they like or they desire to live in, and it's actually affordable. I think that that is supposed to be the American dream. Um, and we will hope that it would be the Washington, D.C. dream. But considering that we have a lot of the areas in the city that has been restricted zoning because of the wealthy versus the non-wealthy. I know that we have a lot of people who tend to say, not in my backyard, as soon as something new comes on board, whereas new people or new changes. I think that what, as Arlene said and Mr. Otten, Chris Otten said, the research before someone brings this to the table, we do need to know who's behind all of the research points because we want to have the proper data. And then also, as Howard said and everyone else has said, we want to make sure that the community that is happening and does have a full buy-in as to what's happening. But we do not need to take off the table the possibility of having a project like this in an area. I wouldn't say it in a dense area because ANC 1B is completely compacted, but in an area, as you mentioned, Crestwood, as you mentioned, I can tell you Ward 7, Ward 8, Ward 3, Ward certain areas of Ward 2. We need to look at those areas in DC that is completely underpopulated and has beautiful spaces for families. But affordability needs to be a driving factor. Affordability at the AMI that is currently listed is not affordable for the average American citizen. And especially in this day and age where everyone has been cut off from their income levels, it's definitely gone down. So we really need to do some research on it, have that using the actual data that's for Washington, D.C. as the AMI, as opposed to incorporating AMI from New York, Virginia, and Maryland to use it for DC standards. So I think once we do that and we do the homework where we're saying that it's okay for people who are wealthy and not wealthy to live in the same area, I think that that's good. I think overall, I understand that what Francois is doing, I think that it's beautiful. But I do think that we need to make sure that whomever is backing this research is people who are reputable and not people who may have predatory means for those who are not so wealthy or those who are wealthy. But I appreciate you listening, and thank you very much, Francois, and thank you, Chair, for making sure that you can hear my take on this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. I'm gonna close conversation here with the hands that are up. So David Martin, Tanya Shand, a response from Commissioner Barrio, and then we will wrap up. It is currently 9:15. I appreciate everyone's patience, and we will be wrapping up, I'm hoping, around 9:30.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Matt, as you said, this is a nationwide issue, housing affordability and housing capacity. We're not going to crack it tonight. We might not crack it tomorrow. So I want to, one, say that I think that, yeah, as is always the case, this resolution cannot cover all issues. I really want to applaud what I'm seeing Commissioner Barrio do here in trying to raise an essential issue and trying to put forward a set of solutions to that issue. It's not going to be all solutions by any means. I do want to speak to the specific issue of whether this is germane or within the purview of this particular committee, and I just want to, raise a voice in favor of this being within our purview, in part simply because we are part of a larger DC housing market. The price and availability and affordability of housing in other parts of DC affects us here. So I absolutely think that not only is it within our purview for that reason, but also simply as a part of a broader DC community where we have a decent amount of density already, that it is important for us to urge other areas that do not have the density that we do to seek to attain some higher level of density, if not necessarily the same density that we have here. So that's it. I realize we don't want to close out for tonight, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
No, very thoughtful comments, David. Thank you for sharing. Tanya.
Yes, I totally disagree. Uh, if it were in reverse and some ANCs passed something that would impact us, I don't think we would appreciate it. If we want to confer with other ANCs, if we want to have them weigh in and then we see what their views are, but I think it's absolutely wrong for us to take a position and issue something that if it was done to us in the reverse, we would definitely not appreciate it. So I think that that is not the way we should go. If we want to see what these other impacted ANCs said and then have some commentary, that would be one thing. But to move forward without any input of the people that would actually be affected is problematic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. No, Tanya, thank you. All right. So let's do this. Commissioner Barrio, I do want to give you an opportunity to respond while you kind of organize your thoughts. Let me just put the question to the committee. I had started off the night by saying that I was not committed to a vote one way or the other. To me, the most important thing was to have a thoughtful, candid, detailed conversation that would provide useful insight and direction to Commissioner Barrio as he kind of went back to review this, and to the commission. I will certainly be raising, and I know Commissioner Barrio will be thinking about it as well, as to whether this does fall in the purview of ANC 1B or not. That's a decision that will have to get made. But I think that this group has done an excellent job of raising the whole, not even the whole spectrum, but a huge spectrum of the issues. And I appreciate what David Martin said, which is we're not going to solve this one today. But I'm so grateful that we were able to spend this time talking about it, right? This is going to be a big part of where we go forward in terms of the comp plan discussions and the comp plan recommendations and the advocacy on the part of our community. So think about it, whether or not you want to take a vote or whether you are good with us sending very detailed, input over to Commissioner Barrio and the commission for their consideration. Commissioner Barrio, I'd like for you to be able to, have a response. You said it. There's no way you're going to be able to cover all the points, but I want you to be able to kind of make any kind of responses that you'd like to make, and then we'll wrap up our night.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I first wanted to say again, thank you to everyone who spoke. I really do appreciate the feedback, and hearing from more folks has, allowed me to rework the resolution, change some things, and try to address, some of the concerns that have been raised and make it a stronger statement and a stronger resolution on behalf of ANC 1B. I'm not going to be able to address everybody's comments, but I did want to say, when I was elected as an ANC commissioner, I had to take an oath, but there was a swearing in ceremony. And part of that ceremony, as I remember it, is, that I had been elected to not just represent my one neighborhood, 1B02, but I'd been elected to help represent a commission, 1B, and to represent DC as a whole, DC as a district and as a city. And I think it's really important that we do, as was mentioned earlier, we see that housing is a larger issue. It is at a local level, it is at a neighborhood level, but it's also at a city level, and it is at a metropolitan level, at a state level, and at a national level. And I think it's really important to not shy away from saying that, ANC 1B should weigh in on the fact that we need more housing in DC, and that when the district isn't building housing in a lot of places, that impacts our commission area. When other areas are basically making it impossible for any new type of housing to be built, that drives up costs in our area, that drives up prices, and it means that, all of the development will be concentrated in just a handful of neighborhoods. And so, I think it is important to, as Karen mentioned, and I really appreciate her comment, to keep in mind the history here, that historically DC has used zoning to exclude people of lesser means from certain areas. And it's not a coincidence that the row house neighborhoods in DC suddenly end at certain lines all around the city. And so, my hope with this resolution is really to make it possible for us to add more housing, for that housing to be less expensive than the $2 million homes that currently exist in many places. And, to actually not just say that we want the new housing to be there, but to actually have it be built. And based off of my research, based off of the evidence I reviewed from many different sources, I really believe that this is the way that we get this done. And that it's not easy to get new housing, but we have to make it possible. And, I think that allowing people to build these row houses, these ADUs, these small homes is a way to really significantly contribute to our housing stock and to make housing more affordable generally. And like I said earlier, it's not the only thing we can do, and it's certainly not the only thing that needs to be done to help develop, housing for people who are lower income. But I do think it is a really important part of the solution. And I'm happy to answer more questions in the future because there's a lot that was brought up. But that is my view, and that's what I'm advocating for.
Great. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Barrio. We have a choice to make here. We can vote on the resolution as it was presented to us tonight, or we can transmit our feedback to Commissioner Barrio and the commission. I hate to have a vote on a vote. I'm not really big on that. The ZPD committee did review this on Monday. They did not vote. They took the strategy of conveying kind of the findings and the questions, et cetera, back to Commissioner Barrio and to the commission as well. So I'm kind of happy to go either direction on this with folks. My sense, right, if I'm reading the room right, my sense is that if we vote on the resolution as presented in this moment, it will probably get voted down. And that if we transmit our kind of feedback, it probably will get revised. So my sense from working with Commissioner Barrio is this is a priority for him. And so I know he's committed to continuing to work on it and to work with us and others. So let me kind of pause there, Krishna, and then to Howard. And you're on mute, Krishna.
Sorry. The only thing I would say is, we have a bit of a reputation. We are the NIMBY committee, bunch of old dudes sitting around, complaining about screaming at clouds and so on and so forth. And I am a little worried. I think my preference would be that we follow what DPD did and just send our comments up to the full ANC. I don't think we have the consensus here to approve the resolution at this point, or reject it. I would wish that we could focus a little bit more on how it potentially could impact small businesses and our economic development and not just housing. That is our bailiwick. We didn't talk about it at all. So we're just going to be sending in a bunch of NIMBY comments, which is fine.
No, wait, I'm going to pause you for a second. So one, your last point first. This is a big policy position, as I'd mentioned before. And you're right. There's a lot of different ways that we can be weighing in, including economic impact and other things. And so I want folks to kind of keep that in mind, right? As we're talking about this one singular policy position, there's a lot of implications. And this is the reason why when you think about the OP timeline for a 25-year plan, they are basically taking 3 years and engaging hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in this feedback process. So I do not take this particular resolution in any way lightly, because this is our commission making a statement about future development. It's one of the reasons that I want us to make sure that we are thoughtful and that we get it right. I will challenge a little bit your concept of NIMBY. I like what Tanya said, which is I would not want to impose something on someone else that I wasn't willing to have in next door to me. And secondly, I would say there are so many opportunities for really thoughtful development and additional density to be added in ANC 1B. I would like to dedicate some of our time and energy into figuring out exactly what those are, as opposed to saying, let's just do kind of a cut across the board. And I work personally with Howard University on an agreement that's going to put a huge amount of density in my front yard. But we were able to do it in a way that we were engaged, right? And we were able to talk about what the development priorities were and the commitment to family size housing and things like that. And so what Chris had said about using this as an opportunity to kind of work thoughtfully between community and developer, that's an important element too. So I don't think it's a bad thing to talk about how we get to some place.
That's
Tanya,
fair enough. Fair enough. We're only half NIMBY here, okay? Just for clarification, only half
Tanya,
NIMBY.
then Howard, then Karen, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, and maybe I missed this. So Francois, and I've missed a couple of WNA meetings. How do your district, have they weighed in on this proposal?
Sorry, what do you mean by my district? Like, how have residents in my district weighed in?
Yes. Like me, folks yes, the folks that you represent, how do they feel about this?
So, I mean, I've spoken to some people in the area about this. I know some people who are personally supportive. I have not commissioned a poll of my area, so I don't know what that looks like. But I will say that, I think that this is an important resolution. I was elected by the people in my district to advocate, and housing was a central issue in my campaign. And I am going to all these meetings. I just want to say I'm going to. I've attended the DPD meeting twice, and this meeting twice as well, because I really am trying to hear what people think, and so this is one of the main outlets to hear folks' thoughts.
Well, you have come before WNA and spoken on a lot of different issues. What I would suggest, again, since we are going into other people's backyards, to bring it for WNA and ask the folks that you officially represent in that context how they feel about what you are proposing more broadly. Thank you.
Okay. Howard, then Karen, and we're almost at 9:30.
Yeah, Matt, if we vote to simply send the comments in, and then Commissioner Barrio will develop a new version, a revised version of the resolution, what would happen next? Would the revision come back to this committee for us to take another look at it? I would hope so.
How about this, right? I am very comfortable for the commission to vote that we would like Commissioner Barrio to consider the comments to make a revision, and that we would like to review it before it goes to the full commission. So I'd be very happy to have that vote.
Yeah.
I've not spoken with Commissioner Barrio about his specific timeline. And so I know that he was eager to put the next version in front of the commission for a vote on December 4th. But that was before he received comments from ZPD and from us. So I don't know where he's at right now with his thinking.
And Matt, that was basically the context. I mean, this came up at the last ANC meeting, and basically, I mean, reading between the lines, they wanted ZPD and economic development to give some additional feedback before the full ANC made a decision, right? Am I reading the room right?
That is 100% it. So we voted to table it to get additional input and some revisions on the document. A number of commissioners met with Commissioner Barrio last Tuesday, which was Veterans Day. That conversation generated the revision that you all looked at tonight. Your comments tonight, along with ZPD's comments, I suspect will result in another version. And so, Francois, I can put the question to you here, but I'm also okay not. But whether you would be willing to do one more round on this for a vote on the commission in January, which would allow our December meeting for one more round of review with you.
Yeah, so you know, to be upfront, given the timelines in terms of OP trying to actually advocate for this, the reality is that ANC 1B passing this resolution is a start, but it's not a finish. In order for us to really spark this conversation, like Matt said, about housing, about how do we find places for our children and our grandchildren to live, it's going to take a lot of work to turn heads and to advocate for it. I've attended several of the committee meetings. I really appreciate all the feedback. I've made a lot of changes, like Krishna mentioned, over the last 4 months to really try to incorporate a lot of that feedback. And we spoke about it at the last commission meeting. So, my current timeline is I would like the commission to at least take a vote on it at the next meeting. We'll see what they do. They may decide that they want to table it. They may decide that they want the committee to review it more. But I do think that if we want this conversation to go beyond just this committee and actually go to the people who are going to decide what the future of DC will look like for the next 20 years, then we have to start taking some positions, and we have to start building a coalition of other ANCs, because that is really my goal. I don't just want ANC 1B to be calling for this. I want this to be a chorus throughout DC, and I want to try to get buy-in from other commissions. But it's very difficult to do if my own commission isn't expressing support for it.
Matt, if the resolution is going to go to the revised version, which we will not see, that where we will not comment on, is going to go to the ANC in December. I think it is very important that the ANC have the information about how many people in this committee would actually like to vote, either table it or vote against it. I think they need to know that information. So I would suggest that the vote include no, comment, or yes. So there would be three choices.
Howard, motion to enact. Howard, put a motion.
Is that
Yeah, no,
I'm suggesting
I'm
it to the chair in a friendly way. So
yeah,
I would
no.
kindly like to make my comment, if that's okay, gentlemen.
Let's vote.
Yep, go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you understanding that I did have my little hand raised. I think that I brought up the subject for this ANC and also across in other areas of the district about making sure that we're using these vacant properties. I think that one, there's no rebuild on those lots. The properties are already vacant. I mean, that you can rebuild, but the thing is, it's just the lots are there. And a lot of these vacant properties are large lots that could be used for large families. And I think that if you're looking at a direct and then also we need to make sure that they're affordable. I would love to see that played within this resolution. Francois, if you would take that under consideration, that if you can do the research on, because Howard Howard basically went to all the meetings, because we definitely were really very, very interested in knowing about the vacant property inventory. I think if you use that vacant property inventory and then also splice it with this information about affordable housing, and you would definitely probably resolve a lot of the issues in regards to where to find housing, because we have a huge inventory of vacant properties in Washington, D.C. So I'm asking that you take that into consideration. They're already in their assigned spaces, and then just advocate for it to be really truly affordable for those who are not so wealthy too. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Karen. So let's do this. Let's do. I think there is at least one vote that we can take. That vote would be, do we vote to support this resolution as presented to the committee tonight? I don't think we can vote on any future version of it until we have seen the future version of it. But I think, Howard, to your point, saying, look, we do need to convey the position of this group. Karen's comment just now highlights, right, that there's a lot of stuff that still needs to get sorted. I do kind of have another view on this, which is we reviewed the priorities from the Office of Planning from phase one. We looked at the Office of Planning timeline. And I worry a little bit about the commission taking a strong position on the comp plan on one item without taking any position on any other comp plan items until like February. Um, so I think there's a balance, right, that we need to strike there. Um, I think that I can convey, absent a vote, that this commission has very specific feedback, that they have shared that feedback, and that they would like the opportunity to review another draft, and at the same time, in parallel, to be able to firm up some of our other comp plan positions. So I think I can convey that without a vote. I think, though, that the vote tonight would be on the resolution as presented to us, and that would be the signal that we'd essentially be sending. So Howard, if you think that is sufficient to kind of send the signal on this resolution, I'm happy to take the vote. Okay. Would someone motion on that? Or maybe I'll just do it. So I move to accept the resolution as presented to us. Um, oh, give me a second, Arlene. Arlene, I'm gonna let you talk, but I'm gonna ask you first. Is this directly relevant to the vote we're about to take?
Yes, because isn't there the other option to table it? Several people tonight mentioned tabling it. So is that one of the options?
We could do two votes. We could do one about I mean, I think, Howard, you're trying to send the message about the fact that it needs more work, right?
Well, no, it should not be pursued for various reasons,
Yeah.
or that it's not acceptable in its current form. People could vote no for more than one reason.
Yeah, that's fair. Francois, go ahead real quick.
No, it's all right.
Okay. All right. We're gonna do you can't really vote not to approve it and then vote to table it. How does that work? Is it sufficient? Is it sufficient? I mean, how about this? No, I got to do this. I got to do it this way. So I move to accept the resolution as presented to the commission, sorry, to the committee tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the resolution as written, raise your Zoom hand. Okay. So two voting in support. Okay, lower your hands. All voting against, please raise your Zoom hands. One, two, three, four, five, and I'm going to abstain on this one. So we've got, by a vote of 5-2, the motion does not pass. Is there a resolution then to table this? Let me just say, is there a motion to table
Yes,
this resolution for further work and discussion, and to request that it be brought back to the committee at its December meeting?
I second that motion.
Oh no, you're so moving it, Karen.
Oh,
Just say so.
okay. I'm moving that we table the motion for it to be reworked based on the comments that was presented from the commission and the committees, and that we table it to come back to the commission, hopefully in December or early January.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
That's
I
perfect.
second
Is there a
that.
second? Great. Tanya, you had your hand up. Any discussion?
No, I was just putting it down after the vote. Thank you.
Oh, got it. Okay. All in favor of tabling for further work and partnership with Commissioner Barrio, please raise your Zoom hand. One, two, three, four, five. Okay. 6, 7. All right. So we have Tanya abstaining, and we have 7. Okay. So we have those votes. We have those actions. Commissioner Barrio is here in real time. So He's hearing it, and I will follow up with him tomorrow or over the weekend and make sure that we are coordinating on next steps. All right. Is there any other new business items that anyone has, or any community announcements from the community?
I have a community announcement,
Okay,
if you
great.
don't mind.
Yep.
We're looking for PSA block captains. These are the people who just make their block great. You know everybody. You can inform everybody about what's going on public safety wise. You can sign up by just texting captain to 202-854-1620 or going to www.3dcacdc at oop, wrong email. 3dcac.org. Thank you. That's my ask.
Thanks. I had one hand up from Frank, but I see it coming down. Arlene, is your hand still up for an announcement?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, not an announcement, but I just wanted to clarify the motion that was passed was to table for further work and come back to the commission or this committee.
This committee and at its December meeting.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, I didn't hear it correctly. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Chauvin.
Yeah, Matt, this is not new business or an announcement, but can we just flash back for and spend 4 minutes on a quick review of the affordable housing map that has met the goals, shows those districts that have met the goals. I just think it's important because it ties into the conversation versus, so people are familiar with our our due diligence, this planning area, due diligence with affordable housing and its production.
What if we do this? What if we send that link around to everybody as homework?
That's fine. Yeah,
And
fine.
we ask you to take a look at it. I actually really do encourage you. I was going to kind of give away the punchline. It literally takes a few minutes to go look at it. You will see very clearly in the data why Commissioner Barrio is beating this drum. And you will see the very different levels of performance across the district by planning area for the creation of new housing stock. And so it's really important for us to be rooted in the data. And so please do take that opportunity. It's 9:45, so I'm not going to burden you with that. Arlene, I think I saw your hand up one more time.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
press the unmute. Sorry.
All right, no worries. All right, with that said, I think we are set to adjourn. It is currently 9:45. Thank you all for all the time, the energy, and the intellect. Again, just really, really appreciated it. Commissioner Barrio, I know you're traveling. Thank you for taking the time to be here and to answer questions. And thank you for starting this conversation, which is a needed conversation.
Are you going to
Of course.
convey
And
this
my
information?
email address is, my email address is 1v02@anc.gov if anybody wants to shoot an email to me and, let me know their thoughts.
Thank you so much. Karen?
Matt, are you going to convey this information from this committee to the ZPT committee? Because I know some of us may be doing double duty. I really want to make sure that, we had a deadline to get everything to Francois by, I believe it was Monday. All of
It's
our
this
comments.
it's this coming Monday in advance of the committee of the whole meeting. And I
Yes.
will share that information with Christian Brandt, who's the chair of ZPD, and ask him to send the feedback from this group to his committee members. I will take the feedback that ZPD got and I will share it with our committee members. And then that way we benefit from the learning of both groups.
I think it would be excellent because I know Francois missed that meeting, but I certainly think that it's night and day the information from both committees. But I think he will get a really balanced opinion from what is actually going on. But it's a
Great.
really good conversation.
Great. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you between now and then. And I look forward to seeing you all soon.
You too. Thank
Night
you.
all.
Good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.